can have desires, we can have intentions, but our attention needs to be in the present moment.
It's the very thing which is our greatest challenge is also our greatest gift to other people, because no one knows it more intimately than we do.
True life mastery is really about seeing the difference between living from your ego versus living from your true self.
The more we live our life coming from a place of balance and harmony between our human nature and our spiritual nature, the easier and more graceful our lived experience becomes.
Hey, man, what's going on? What's going on, man? Coach Free here. Hey, today I got the second half of the posse, and the first posse we talked about relationships. First group posse members, we talked about relationships. In this episode, we are going to talk about resilience, right? Being resilient, having resiliency, right? Being able to bounce back from whatever it is you're going through in life, man. And I got the posse members with me today, the second half of the posse members. We're still missing one. But, we got the posse members with us today, man. We got Dr. Fred Blum. We got Miss Ma'am, Danielle, right? And we got Jan Harte, and we got Ian, right? I keep saying Ian, but because I'm American, don't worry about that. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about? So anyway, starting with Dr. Fred Blum, going to Danielle, then Jan, and then Ian. Rand, just tell the people a little bit about yourself before we really get off into this part. Dr. Fred Blum. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Well, I am thrilled to be here talking about resilience. Just tell a little bit about myself, my background, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
All right. I am what I call a self-inquiry coach, which means I help people really discover the difference between sort of the personality, this idea of who they are and who they really are, or what I call the true self, and helping to teach them to live from that place of freedom and peace and authenticity. Before this, I was a holistic chiropractor for about 25 years, and I've been doing this work now for about 6 or 7.
All right, Miss Danielle.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here too. I am a personal peace coach, thinking about changing my title to a people whisperer, because I learned a lot of what I teach through horse whispering and experiences with horses. So that's where I'm headed. Also a public speaker, and I started this journey about 3 years ago after spending 36 years as a horseshoer.
Okay. Miss Jan.
Hi, I'm thrilled to be here too. And I suppose I'm a HR and mind mentor. That's the work that I do. I've worked in human resources for 30 odd years, my whole career, and in the personal development space. But in the last 5 years or so, I've moved into the mind mentoring. And I basically work with people who suffer from stress, anxiety, overwhelm that's culminated into burnout. And I help them to align their potential, their performance, and their well-being so that they can chase their dreams and enjoy their life instead of being burnt out all the time. So that's me.
Ian.
As the logo suggests, I'm a coach, but I'm also a healer, and I help people to overcome loss and start living again by helping them release the grief that has been holding them back, sometimes known, sometimes unknown, from any of the loss that they've experienced in their life.
That's awesome, man. For the people that don't know who I am, that may be watching this, that don't know who I am Coach J. Malcolm Free. I am a neuro coach. I am a health coach. And my focus point is using neuroscience and health coaching techniques to help people find balance in life and through spirituality, health, relationships, and a bunch of other areas. So it's enough about me. So when we talk about resiliency, right, we get into talking about resiliency or being resilient, right? What is the first word or first phrase that comes to each one of you guys' mind? Doc?
Yeah, if I was going to summarize like the very first step in really becoming more resilient, I would say it is to slow down. In other words, slow down enough to notice yourself, notice your reactions, notice the tension or stress that you might be experiencing that's feeding into potentially a lack of resilience, so that, you know, once you start from there, you can begin to make different choices.
Okay. Ms. Danielle?
So I would say focus. In my youth as a writing student, I cannot tell you how many times I was told to look up, look where you're going, look where you want to go. And that applies here too. You need to have your focus on where you want to go, not what's bringing you down.
Okay, Ms. Jan?
Yeah, the first thing that occurs to me is that resilience is innate to us. It's something that we're born with. We don't have to give it to ourselves, put it into us, build it, develop it. And when we realize that it's built into the design of who we are and that it's innate, then we start to realize that we've been misguided as to where the source of our resilience is, and we can look in a new direction. Because when we realize the source of our resilience is actually inside us, then we see that we've just misguidedly learned to obscure it with what we do with our own thinking, where we take ourselves with our own thinking. So just understanding that it's already part of who we are is the first thing for me.
Ian?
All very good answers. I think it comes down to responsibility. It's about realizing that you can have total control of what you bring to the table. So what does Les Brown say? It's comeback power. It's being able to then go within yourself and summon the courage to be able to keep going, even at times when perhaps we're not sure that we feel like we can.
Right. When it comes to, my little part of resilience, man, it's about, being able to take that flight, being able to bounce back, being able to fight back, through whatever you're going through. It's like that flower that grows through the concrete, right? Being resilient enough to get through whatever it is you're going through in order to, in order to blossom, in order to be seen, in order to be, for your presence to be felt. Presence Posse, nothing funny. But anyway, so when you get to that point of, like certain people get to a point where their resiliency is being tested, right? For whatever reason, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, whether it's whatever, right? What would be their first step, right, to working towards that resiliency? What would be their first step, Miss Danielle?
So they have to find the power to regenerate that sense of resiliency, or get in touch with that sense of resiliency, the belief that they will be okay, that they will get through it, and that however it comes out, what do you say, Malcolm? It's all good. It's all God.
It's all good. All right, Miss Jan.
Yeah. I suppose the first thing that I found helpful for myself was, excuse me, understanding that we have a built-in mechanism that guides us in every moment in terms of whether we're moving towards our resilience or away from our resilience. And, it's our feelings, it's how we feel. So as soon as we feel anything but good inside, and it's, Fred was saying, slow down and look for the tension or the tightness. Those uncomfortable feelings are our friends. They're trying to wake us up to the fact that we're taking ourselves away from our well-being and away from our resilience. you know, and trying to wake us up to the fact that we can release those thoughts and come home to our own resilience, because we're made to bounce.
Right.
Yeah.
Ian?
Absolutely made to bounce. When we're little babies, right? Where they bounce, they're soft. And so to me, when we're in a state where we can't find a way forward, it's asking for help. Like, it's okay to admit that we need someone to help us initially, because sometimes we think we're giving away our power by actually telling someone what we're going through. But to me, it's the greatest show of courage to be able to put your hand up and say, this is what's going on for me. I'm not coping. Like, what do I do? And whenever I've been in those places, just, yes, there are tools that I've learned within myself to move through things, but having someone there in my corner to be able to talk to, whether that's a friend or a family member, or more often it's someone outside of my immediate circle who I trust, who I can speak to and be heard.
Doc?
Yeah. I used to have a teacher years ago who would say that when the going gets tough, you get what you've been practicing. So it's, you know, like what I want to say here is that the best way to really develop resilience is not some quick tip. You know, like if you're practicing being stressed out all the time, and then, you know, you find yourself in a position where you're being tested, that's not the time to suddenly try and become resilient. You know, it takes like gradual work. Learning how to do all the things that we're talking about here doesn't happen overnight. So it takes a commitment to me and being able to find yourself, to get present, to be able to slow down, to find that inner wisdom. But if you practice that in moments when you need it, you'll find that it's there.
Right. For me, you know what I'm saying, when you talk about resiliency, you talk about experiences. You talk about life experiences. You talk about the things that you've gone through in life. You talk about the things that shape your mind, that shape your brain to either be resilient or be fearful of. So, you know what I'm saying, and you choose whether you're going to give in to fear or you're going to fight back, bounce back, or be resilient. And like you said, you know what I'm saying, that's practice. Everybody touched on it, you know what I'm saying, you know, more or less in the same, but just in different ways. But it's about identifying, right? Identifying your situation and identifying what it takes to resist or to be resilient. And so when it comes to, you know, saying the brain, right? You know what I'm saying? That's why the brain is malleable, right? You know what I'm saying? The brain itself is malleable. So you can learn how to be resilient, right? You can practice it and, you know what I'm saying, make resiliency a part of your life. And, you know, in this time and era that we're in right now, there's a lot of things that's coming at us that we need to be, you know what I'm saying, have that resilience for. It's not just the personal things, right? It's other elements, other things going on in life, right? Like the coronavirus and like all the other little stuff that's going on, not little, but big stuff that's going on. So when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, being able to really sit back and identify these things that as in order for us to come together, right, as a unit, or, you know what I'm saying, to be of one mind about it when it comes to resiliency, right? What would it take in order to get that collective mind to be resilient towards the things in life that, you know, we know about? Miss Jan, I'm sorry. Yeah, I like.
Sure. While I was waiting there, I forgot the question while I was waiting for you to pick somebody. Sorry, can you ask me what the question was?
So, you know what I'm saying, when it basically, let me try to shorten that down because I got into my feelings real quick. But anyway, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to being resilient, and there's a lot of things in life that we have to be resilient, not just the things that, you know, our personal, you know, relationships, not just our personal finances, but there's other elements in life that, you know, as we have to be collective about being resilient as a people, right? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So what would be a process? What would we have to do to get that, you know what I'm saying, to get that collective mind in order to fight against these elements?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a process for me. It's more about understanding. I mean, life will always be happening. There's always going to be people and circumstances and situations, and some we like and some we won't. But it's when we get caught up in identifying ourselves in those situations or creating meaning that, causes pain and strife and struggle in our body. But when we realize that there is this mind-feeling connection, and when we realize that we're using our thoughts like a paintbrush to create our own experience, then suddenly it's not as inviting to keep creating stories and painting stories that are going to hurt you. You suddenly have less tolerance for your pain and suffering when you realize that a lot of it is being created by the way you're using your own thinking. And that was what I found. Was like, why would I do that to myself? So we just lose tolerance for it.
Okay, Ian.
Before we look at coming together, we need to look at ourselves. And so if we're talking about like bringing that connection through resilience, it really is, we need to be able to know who we are. We need to be able to love who we are. We need to be able to have a full connection with who we are. And now obviously there's no end of the depth of any of those things. That is the start of the journey. Like, we can't start trying to come together if we're coming as wounded people, bringing all of our pain into a collective discussion. We need to come from a place of our own peace and our own love and our own tolerance of who we are.
Okay, Doc, how you feel about it?
Yeah. I kind of see both sides almost being the same thing. In other words,
Of our pain into
when we begin to really wake up, and that is the term I use very deliberately, to who we are, like what I call our true self or our true nature, we begin to see that we are in fact connected with other people, that we are one. And kind of built into that experience is a peace, a freedom that allows us to reset those ego-based responses, the competitiveness or the reactivity, the anger, the fear. That's not really who we are. That's coming from some old sort of conditioned responses. So it's as simple as, it's a little bit like what Jan was saying, right? We wake up to who we really are, and we're just literally, that comes with a different set of responses, a different set of options as to how we respond to stress.
Yeah. Okay, Miss Danielle.
Absolutely. Everybody's saying the same thing. My coaching is personal peace, because I believe without personal peace, there's no hope for a greater peace, right? We have to learn to be compassionate with ourselves, to be forgiving of ourselves, to believe that we can heal. And I think those are the same things collectively that we have to walk through. We have to learn to extend that grace and compassion and forgiveness to everyone, so that we have it for ourselves and it's reflected to us outwardly. But there's such an ingrained mode of interacting with one another that if we can undo that personally, we can begin to unravel that in a larger sense.
You're muted, Malcolm.
We can't hear you.
Yeah, and once again, everybody's like your interpretation and everything that you added to it. That's a lot of value that's been put into what everybody's saying. If you take what everybody said there and put it together like a puzzle, then you have like a full, you have a full ongoing blown image of what we're trying to do and what needs to be done. It's just that, we all have to work it from different angles, right? Everybody can't see, we're not all sitting in the same element of the spectrum to see everything the same way, right? We see things differently. And it takes us to see things differently in order to make the bigger picture happen. But if I focus on just my part of the picture, right? When it comes to resiliency, when it comes to, just being resilient in life and being resilient, not only for personal reasons, but for outer reasons, right? Is that effective? Would that be effective, Ian?
Sorry, I was getting completely lost in your words then. What was the actual question? I didn't know there was a question at the end of that.
So is it necessary for everyone to be focused on their part of the element, or should we all just like work together in different parts, different elements of resiliency, right? Like an individual person. Let's just take an individual person. I have my perspective of what resiliency is and what I should do for resiliency, but my mate might have another idea about what we're going through as a unit, as what, how to get to that resilient part of what our relationship. So is it necessary for me to stay focused on my part of that, or should I be open to listening to her part of being resilient?
Yeah, absolutely. And like what we were all saying before about what's the best way to come together, it's really focusing on self, because when we can come into any situation where there's more than one person and we can come with our own sense of love and lead with love and lead from our heart, then the coming together of in whatever way is so much easier. And there is an element of understanding the other person's perspective. And so it's when we come into any situation where it's collective and we bring our heart into that, then we're listening, we're finding out things from the other person's perspective. We're finding a way to help them have their needs met, and not just going in there with our own ego wanting our own needs met first. It's how can we come together in a way where it's a win for everyone. So I think it is a combination. We still have to do the work on us first. We still need to be able to find a space, like Danielle said, to heal, and we have to believe that that's possible. And when we go in with from that space, from our heart, and have that belief that it's possible, then those conversations and those moments of coming together are so much easier.
Right. Ms. Jan, when it comes to like on a spiritual level of, is resiliency necessary on, when you're on a spiritual level, right? And why would resiliency be necessary on a spiritual level?
Well, we are spiritual beings, but we're also human. Right. And we have to navigate the world that we live in as human beings. So I think that it's a very useful resource for us as humans to help us navigate the world. But I'd like to come back to what Danielle said earlier about the personal piece, though, as well, and what Ian was saying, because I firmly believe that if we all came from the philosophy of having personal peace and did everything within our power to keep ourselves in a peaceful place, that would just ripple out. That energy would just ripple out into the world. And when you're in relationship with other people, if that's the energy they're getting from you, and if you meet them with love and understanding, regardless of what they're going through, whether you agree with it or not, there's a magnetism in that. And that alone will turn people around over time if all they ever meet is that energy from you. Now, obviously, You're not going to be at 100% either, but we do our best as much as we can.
What is your definition of personal peace?
My definition of personal peace is allowing myself to be present, aware, and in tune with the information and the nudges and the ideas that are coming to me from my innate health. And my resilience is part of that, and so is everybody else's. We are healthy. There's a healthy buoyancy in all of us that's just covered up by thinking that we've been practicing, as Fred said. If we've been practicing our whole life having a busy mind or an analytical mind or being insensitive or judgmental, that energy covers up that buoyant health that's underneath. So it's an unveiling and removing the veils that are in our way to go back to that beautiful childhood energy that we had when we were born, that Ian spoke about.
Okay, hey Doc. As a so as you go through life, right? As we go through life, we have different experiences from youth all the way up to currently now, right? You're gonna have the ups, you're gonna have the downs. And when you get to that down moment, those down moments in life, right? What's in your opinion, right? What's the after you identify that you're in that space, right? You're in that space. How do you generate the energy? Where do you pull the energy from to fight back, to bounce back? Where do you find that energy? Where do you pull that energy from?
Well, now you're touching on one of my favorite subjects, which is energy. The name of my business is literally Energy Rich Living. And so I don't want to, this can become a complicated answer. So I'm going to try and make it really simple here. Because the energy is a resource and it's necessary. Energy is the fuel for change. And it doesn't matter if the change is trying to change my mind or change my business. We need to find the right type of energy and enough of it. So where do you find it is a little bit difficult to answer precisely until we know the specifics of the situation, right? And again, look, I don't buy a baseball glove and a bat one day and say, okay, I'm ready to play in the major leagues, right? If you want to really master energy, if you want to master resilience, it takes time and practice, like I was saying before. But when it comes down to energy, I'll say briefly that I consider that there are 5 different types of energy. And I'll identify them as life force, which is what runs your body. There's my hand. Emotion, which is what we use to motivate and drive us. Lower mind, which is the linear part of our brain that kind of goes A, B, C, D. Upper mind, which is big picture, visionary type thinking. And what I call soul, which is sort of the truth, the deeper wisdom of who we really are. And at any point in time, depending on what it is that we're dealing with, one of those resources might become more important or necessary than another one. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, to me, it does. Maybe.
Me too, Fred.
It could be just you and me in this conversation.
To me, yeah. Maybe to us, yeah. But anyway, Miss Danielle, when you get into exploring, when you get into exploring, because there's different types of resistance, or resilience, different ways of bouncing back. When you get into a psychological bounce back, how does a person psychologically prepare themselves to fight the fight or to bounce back or to be resilient?
For me, it was a lot of trial and error. And it's been addressed in several of the other answers here. I had to first be willing to admit that I needed help. I had to figure out who to ask for help that could actually help me, and not then if I asked somebody who wasn't capable of helping me, then it reinforced my victim and my lack of energy to go forward. I had to actually find somebody who was successful in doing what I wanted to do if I was going to ask for help. So as I navigated the challenges in my life and I got through them and I learned that there were actually treasures in those traumas, then I had more hope for the next time, and I had more experience, and I had more that's what Fred was saying. You get what you've practiced, right? So I wasn't great at it when I first experienced trauma in my life. In fact, the first trauma I experienced in my life, I didn't remember for many, many years because I had no way to deal with it as a child. So you have to find the person that can help you with what you're facing. Be willing to ask them. Be willing to receive that help and to begin to integrate that. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the more hopeful you get. And when you face a challenge, you're like, I'm going to learn something new, instead of, oh my God, here we go again, right? That's to me, that's how it happens. It's just over time. I don't know anybody that's got through this life without some kind of challenge that they needed resilience for. It's going to happen.
Right. So what I'm gonna do at this point, I'm gonna flip the script a little bit, right? And I'm not gonna allow, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about? Everybody get a chance to ask 2 questions of the posse, and then we'll go from there. Miriam already has questions she want to ask, but anyway. So Doc, go ahead.
So I should ask questions of the posse. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. About resiliency, yes.
One at a time, I assume, right? Like just ask one of the posse members.
All right. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Just making sure I got the instructions. Sure. Ian, can you give an example of a time where you felt like you were successfully able to demonstrate some of the principles that you've been sharing here today?
To me, that's like an everyday occurrence. So the work that I do is not just how I help people, it's a way of life for me. So to me, when we talk about resilience, it's realizing that, and that was in the little trailer at the start, is the very thing that we've overcome is our gift, right? We were able to help other people overcome the same thing. And to me, that's an ongoing way of life. So even the last couple of weeks when I've had some different things come up around family, so while business is ticking along and to what people would see on social media and even out there in the world is that everything's fine, like we're working through some stuff here. And to me, it always comes back to the same place, is 2 things. One, I find that stillness in my own meditation and I ask for answers. Now, for anyone at the start of their journey, that's not necessarily going to be that easy. This is like from me of like nearly 10 years of this meditation practice and being able to find that stillness. But I also know when I first started meditation, it just changed everything. It's not necessarily what you get, but it's everything that you let go of. So for me as an angry dad, it was finding that peace that allowed me to not show up angry all the time, not bring all my challenges from working a corporate job home with me. And the second most important thing, so that's starting the healing process, right, is the meditation. And then the second most important thing, or equally as important, is to have someone there. So I have a number of coaches now that I go to depending on what I'm working on and what I'm struggling with. So a couple of weeks ago, same, like I said, I'm working through this challenge that I've got from a personal perspective, and I have a conversation with my coach, and she allows me to go through a healing process as well, and to see what I can, like we've all talked about before in terms of resilience, what I can change within myself, what I can bring to the table, whatever I need to do to make sure that I'm giving this situation the best chance to heal from a collective perspective as well.
Okay, and I should ask another question now, right? I was just kind of letting Ian's answer in. Danielle, because we've all had opportunities in life where we're called to be resilient. Do you think there's a role of, I'm going to call it courage, like just something that we stand up in response to something, rather than letting it knock us down?
There's absolutely a role of courage in being a human, right? As a spiritual being on a human journey, you're going to need some courage. You're going to need some energy that comes from that. It can come from, like, I'm not going to be beaten by this, just a flat out kind of contrariness. But if you overdo that, it can work against you. Ask me how I know. I think that people tend to think that giving into fear is not a courageous thing, but you have to acknowledge the fear to walk through it. You can't pretend like it's not there and show courage. That's where I think courage really comes in.
Beautiful.
All right, Jan, your 2 questions. Was she frozen?
Frozen. Yeah.
Oh no.
Or is she trying to trick
Okay,
us? One or the other. I think she's
Well, impossible.
no,
Look
she
what
left.
she did.
All right, Ian, go for it.
I'm really curious about the animal whispering, Danielle. So what I'd love to know how, with your work, have you worked with animals where the animal has been part of the healing process for someone else, where you've actually taken someone else through that? And if that hasn't been the case, then maybe your own healing through working with animals.
I was fortunate to meet a 4th generation horse whisperer. His name's Dr. Stan Allen. He's he just passed a couple years ago. He's from Utah. And I watched him work with animals and their owners and saw the transformations. And he explained some of it, but so much of it at that point, I wasn't able to really let land. Like, I saw it and I heard what he said, but he's written a book called Questing for Peace by way of the Peace and Productivity by way of the Whisperer. And I've reread that book, so it's dog-eared. And yes, I got certified in horse whispering, and I took some people through that, and I took some horses through that. And just, we talk in the Harte math work about mirror neurons, and that is what you're seeing. The same kind of thing. There's an emotional resonance in the horse. They have no ability to be deceptive. They don't know how to lie, right? So if you don't really want to know who you are, don't do it. Don't go to a horse whispering clinic. Don't go to somebody who works with those animals, because that's what happens.
So the horse mirrors back to you whatever you've got going on within you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and if you have somebody that can help you interpret that, it helps, because a lot of times we hit our denial. So it helps to have somebody.
My second question is to you, Fred. You work a lot with energy, you said. And so do you use flow, like personal flow, when you're helping people with energy? And if so, how does that help people to use the energy, but also find more of their own energy?
So you mean like by flow, like being in the flow, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Being in the zone, that kind of thing. Do I use it? I don't know exactly how to answer that. I mean, in terms of
what about if I put it from this perspective, do you help people find more of what they naturally do well in going through their own self-growth journey?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we could talk about that on a lot of levels. I think we all have a blueprint, if you will. Like, there are certain intrinsic strengths and in weaknesses that we get to work with. And one of the things that happens in my work with clients is I help them to begin to understand that blueprint, so they can begin to maximize their strengths. And of course, even your weaknesses can be improved on and grown. But I'm a big believer in leaning into the strengths. So if we find out, Ian is in the 3rd grade, and his teacher says, well, Ian is brilliant at art, but he's really bad at math. So we're gonna take his art time and we're gonna put it all in math. And they're trying to do that. They're saying he doesn't need to get better at art. Let's just make him better at math. But what that teaches us is to struggle, is to work in the areas where we're least resourceful. And so I like to teach people to find, because there's always, in every moment in life, there's an opening. There's something like a space, an opening that we can find that requires the least amount of effort, the least amount of struggle. And the better we get to know ourselves, the more easily that opening can be found.
Yeah, and if we apply that to resilience, to me, that's something, just thinking about it now. So there was a reason I asked that question, is some of those times when I've been struggling is find that natural thing because like you said, it gives you that energy and it gives you that forward progress. And I'm feeling tingles through, right, that we're all sort of on the same page there, is that when we just fall into what's most natural, what's easiest, then we can navigate resilience quite effortlessly almost at times.
Effortless is the word. If I could add one more thing, the natural, and yet he's still talking, and the natural, the sort of natural, and natural is not really the right word. The programmed response that we have is to go into the struggle, to fight back, to do this.
Yeah.
And so again, sorry, Danielle, but to beat a dead horse is to keep talking about the practice aspect of this, is that you learn to look for the space where there is an opening, You learn in yourself to find where there's no struggle. You learn to look at the situation to see what naturally wants to unfold. And then, yes, effortless is the word I use a lot.
Yeah, beautiful.
Miss Danielle, your 2 questions?
Malcolm, tell us in your practice how you would help somebody that would come to you that was not feeling resilient.
Well, if you're not feeling resilient, first thing we'd have to do is we have to go back and we'd have to figure out why. We'd have to go back and try to reframe some situations, reframe some thoughts, reframe, we got to look at take a deep dive into your life and figure out what's happening there, because, it's human nature to be resilient. So, you know what I'm saying? So there had to be some really extreme, something extreme happened to you to make you not resilient, right? Because that's like, to me, not trying to be funny, that's non-human, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So as far as the practice wise or whatever the case is, like I said, we would have to really go back into their life, maybe have to reframe some things, maybe, get them to see where they lost because they haven't lost the resilience, they just lost the drive to be resilient, right? So we got to go back and find that drive and find out what happened and try to clarify it, et cetera, et cetera.
So that's the start.
That's the
you
start.
Believe it's always there and you've just lost connection.
Right. You just got to get back reconnected with it.
And that was probably through a trauma of some sort.
Right. And it may not have even been something like really, because some people you find out that their lives have been twisted off of something really where we would think was really small, but it meant it had big value to them. Right. Like I didn't get, I didn't get the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip for Christmas. Right. I'm just saying, what I'm talking about? But that to them meant something totally, what I'm talking about? It meant something to them.
Right. Our brains can do that for sure.
Right. So, what I'm saying? So you got to go back and find it, no matter how big it is or no matter how big it is or small it is, you got to go back and find that and then walk them through that process so they can see like, okay, I didn't get the Kung Fu grip, but I did get a G.I. Joe, right? Or whatever. So, what I'm saying? And then you start walking them out of that process and then walking them into their own greatness.
Really good. It's like a self-trust exercise again. Yeah. Starting to yes. Trust our most natural way. Yeah. Cool.
To regenerate those things. So, Jan, how did you decide to go into this area of helping people with their resilience, with their mindset, with their after the career that you had?
Oh, you muted, Jan.
I got you. Oh. Go ahead.
Thanks, Malcolm. Yeah, Danielle, I spent a lot of my time as a HR person going into organizations, doing bullying investigations, mediating between people who were, at odds with each other. And over time, it just occurred to me that I was getting there too late and that an ounce of prevention would be far more valuable than bringing somebody like me in after the fact. Because by the time I would show up, people were entrenched in their positions. They were banging their fists on the table. One person had to be right. One had to be wrong. Somebody had to be punished. and held accountable. And it's very hard to bring people back together so that they can have a positive working relationship after that. So that was when I thought, no, it's too late. I have to do something different. So then I went away and trained in the mental health space. And now I go in earlier and do the preventive work.
So you feel like you have a greater effect now. You did it because you thought you could have a greater effect. That's
yes,
awesome.
and it's much more empowering for people. The results are more empowering. Yeah, and people find their resilience, and then they can come back into relationship because they feel better. When we feel better, we do better. So, I describe the work I do as helping people to have the best of them show up more of the time.
Excellent.
All right. So, Ms. Jan, your 2 questions real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question as well, Malcolm, following on Danielle's. Like when we work with somebody who didn't get the GI Joe or whatever, that's one thing. But what about if you're working with somebody that's been through severe trauma, or somebody has PSTD, or they've, and they're saying, I'm not the kind of person that can bounce back from this.
Well, first thing, okay, so in that case, right, it's about showing them how for me, it's about showing them how your body is built to resist, how your brain is built to be resilient, how, on a spiritual level, you are created to be resilient. It's before I get into like, oh, yes, you can. I'm going to give you evidence of, right? I'm going to give you evidence of, right, to show you what you're made of, what what are you capable of? You're capable of it because you're built to to be resilient. So once I get you to see this, right, I get you to see this physically, mentally, and spiritually, I get to show you that your brain is like I said earlier, it's plastic, and it moves, shapes, and do what it's got to do, right? Now I can sit back and say, yes, you can, yes, you can. There's no point in me saying, yes, you can, if you don't believe that you can. Mm-hmm. So if I give you the evidence of it first, now I start walking you through that process of knowing, right? Because now you know.
Yeah. Okay, so you're working with the belief first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Thank you. I'm after forgetting my second question now. And
will I marry you? Well, no, I can't marry you.
No, I'm taken. Sorry. I can't remember the second one. It's gone. Never mind.
All right. So, hey, check it out. It's okay. Our time is about up anyway. I enjoyed the show, the conversation, man. This is just a round robin discussion, right? We didn't really, really get we trust me, every last one of us can get real geeky, but we didn't really get to the geeky part, man. We just had the conversation. And this is the posse. It's the second half of the posse. We talked about it earlier. You guys met the first half of the posse, with Bobby. But with Miriam and Sadu. Also, but understand this, man. We will be here. The posse is here to have these discussions, man, about resilience, about relationships, right? We're going to get into the whole energetic flow. We're going to get into the universal laws. We're getting into, health and wellness, or health and well-being. Right, we're going to get into those discussions because those discussions are necessary, right, to have at this moment in time in life. These discussions are necessary. The spiritual conversations most definitely need to be spoken, and that's what the posse is here for, right? As we bring in new members, we'll have different aspects. different viewpoints. But understand that this is what the posse is for. It's for you to watch us. It's for you to gather information from different aspects, different sides of the spectrum. So, because sometimes you got to figure out where you fit, right? Everybody, you can turn a vibe, you can turn the hertz up on something, but everybody's going to vibrate differently, right? So you got to figure out what you vibrating to. You got to figure out, what you're attracting to magnetically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, in order to really move forward in life. And that's what this is about, man. It's about getting people to understand who they are, right? We want you to know who we are, because we want you to reach out to us. But it's about understanding who you are and what, and which direction you're going to go. Now I'm gonna shut up and, Doc, you know what I'm saying? Everybody, I'm gonna give everybody a few little seconds just to put your little spill out there, you know what I'm saying? Whatever it is you want to talk about, whatever you want to say real quick, to make the mental connection with these people and you, right? So, Blum.
All right. Thank you, first of all, Malcolm and everyone for coming together. I think this posse is an amazing thing. And yeah, I second the resources that are available here for people. I hope, people out there take advantage of this. Closing words, we have forgotten who we are, and we have forgotten how amazingly powerful and loving and free we are, beyond anything that our tiny little identity can begin to conceive of. So, if I can be of any service to anyone that's watching in that regard, I assume my contact information will be around somewhere. Reach out, for real. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you about the things we spoke about. I never charge for that initial conversation, and it would be my pleasure to see, there it is. It would be my pleasure to see how I can help you on this journey.
Danielle.
It's like magic.
Right?
Malcolm's magic
I'm
fingers.
so excited about this posse because we just kind of organically came together. And we're hearing from all parts of the globe, like the same things. And to me, that's just so impactful, that people are people are people. And we can talk about resilience and relationships and energy and spirituality and physical well-being and mental well-being and emotional well-being as if they're separate, but they're not. Right? We just talk about them that way. It's all one thing. And that in itself, that was a huge aha to me. Like, you can't do one thing without affecting all the other things. So I hope that if same kind of thing, you're interested in talking with me further, if there's something I can do to support you in your growth, I'd be happy to do that. Reach out. I have that same kind of 30-minute clarity call. If I'm somebody that's a good fit for you, we'll go from there. And if not, I probably have some people to refer you to.
Miss Jan.
Hi. Well, I'm going to echo everything that Fred and Danielle have said. And this is an awesome posse. And amazing how we all just came together organically. It's been fantastic. In terms of resilience, it's part of who we are. It's part of our nature, along with common sense and wisdom and everything else. And as Fred said, we've forgotten who we are. We have forgotten that we are pure potential. And the only thing that will ever get in the way is our own minds. And we can help ourselves in that regard. So if anybody is struggling with their own thinking and would like a chat, I'd put the same offer out that Fred and Danielle did. I'd be delighted to speak to anybody. Thank you. Right. And thanks for tuning in tonight.
Ian.
Thanks, Malcolm, and thank you all of you for a great chat. To me, something we didn't really touch on around resilience is our own intuition. We kind of didn't. We talked about it, but not in that sort of using that word. And so wherever you are and whatever you're looking at, it's about trusting your intuition on the next step for you. And if the next step is something you need to do on your own, then do that. If your gut's telling you need some help, then do that. And to me, it's making sure that whoever you get help from, it's got to be the right fit for you, because I'm sure we've all had different coaches and trainers and so on that have taken us down the path that wasn't quite right. And it's so important to find a place where, you trust within yourself and you trust that person that this is right for me. So, to me, it's like, think I said at the start, like the ultimate show of strength is to actually put your hand up and ask someone and reach out. So there's some amazing people in this posse, whether it's those of us on today or those of us who are going to be on at other times. Trust your instincts, and it could be someone else altogether. But it's just that you got to start that journey and start reaching out and finding out more information, even if it's just listening to someone at first. Then you'll develop the resilience as you go.
All right. Well, you know what I'm saying? My little here's the thing, man, I'm gonna talk about real quick. And you know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. Life itself is energy, right? Energy travels, energy does not travel in a straight line, right? It travels in waves, ups and downs, up and down. Now you can get energy to travel from point A to point B in a straight distance, but it'll never travel in a straight line. Understand that. Life itself is energy. So life itself is going to have ups and it's going to have downs, right? It's going to have, there's no way around it. There's no way to get away from it. Now, the only thing you have to understand is when you're in that down moment, when you're going in that down slope and you're in that down moment, right? You automatically have a resilience as a human to fight back. The only thing is you got to be able to connect to whatever it is, right? You got to be able to identify whatever it is you're going through in life. You got to be able to identify it. Right. Once you identify it, now you can start working your way out of it. Understand, you don't give up when you're in your down moment. That's not when you give up. That's when you become strong. That's when you become stronger. That's when you stand tall and you start opening your eyes, right? Using your intuition, right? Because you have intuition all over. You got intuition that comes from your brain. You got intuition that comes from your heart. You got intuition that comes from your gut. You're filled with intuition and how to. Right? You know what I'm saying? There is no such thing as I can't figure this out. There is no, right? You just have to keep fighting, right? You got to keep going. You got to figure it out. You got to be willing to learn something new. You got to be willing to ask the questions in order to get to where you need to be, to get going back up this ladder that we have to get to. Now, once you go through that part, right now you've gone through this resilience thing. Guess what? Now you have even more resilience. So the next time, whatever that was that got you down, right? It don't bother you as bad. It don't bother you as much. You built that resilience, I'm talking about, to whatever that is. So as humans, understand that you have that resilience and understand that, you have to pay attention, right? You have to be focused. As Miss Lady said, you got to be focused, right? On being successful, on being out of the what I call the suck, right? It takes the suck to make you resilient, right? It takes the suck. You got to go through some things. You got to be willing to experience life to build resilience. And if you're afraid to go through life, right? You're scared to do this, you're scared to do that, then you never build resilience to be better than that. And I'm going to leave that alone. Anyway, Coach Free, I'm done, man. We are the posse, right? There's plenty of us, and we got a lot to talk about, man. So make sure you guys, stay connected, stay tuned with us. I'm gonna ask the coaches, once I end the podcast, just stay on, and we'll talk a little bit. But anyway, man, this is the posse, Coach Free. Dr. Blum, we talked about that. Miss Danielle, Miss Jan, and my man Ian, right? And hey, we love each and every last one of y'all, man. Once again, stay connected, and we appreciate the posse members that are there watching us and supporting us. Peace, people. Okay, bye.
Bye.